So today we're looking at the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers, and looking at, I don't even know if it's a bright spot. It's a dependable spot in the Canes, which is Jaccob Slavin. And we've highlighted him a few times. I was actually having a conversation with someone on Media Row yesterday about the 3 stars, and like Adam Gold does the stars in the aftermath, right, in the post game for the Canes. And like after a game like that, what do you do with the stars of the game and the players of the game, where you look around and you go like, all right, maybe Stankoven had a couple moments, so he's definitely in. You got to come up with 2 or 3 more names. Like, what do you do?
Like Martinook had a pretty decent day.
And I think it's almost like by default you just go Slavin.
Yeah.
Because even if he didn't play great, still probably star worthy, right? Like his floor is so high that you probably take it for granted, but also when you're looking around and scrounging for any kind of thing that you can point to and go, well, at least that happened. Slavin is that dude. He's going to be in the right position, even if he has and he did last night, a couple passes where you're like, interesting decision to go there. Not sure that would have worked out every time. I thought he took some shots that were very, maybe this will work. Let me see if I can get something here, which was necessary. Like that was the right energy to have. So Slavin plays that role of the forgotten superstar until everything else crumbles. And then you go, there's my oasis in this desert. There's Jaccob Slavin. So we thought, who is that for the Panthers, right? Because speaking of like all these upset Canes fans, do you realize what Panthers fans would give to have won a playoff game in each of the last 7 years?
Carolina Panthers fans? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I have to clarify my Panthers. To have made it to the conference championship in 3 of the last 7 years. It is one of those, like, you don't know what you have till it's gone. But the Panthers are trying to build up to the Canes levels, Carolina Panthers, trying to build up to the Canes levels. So who is their Slavin? Who is their, even when it's bad, it's still pretty good? Who is their oasis in the desert of a bad game?
That also might be underappreciated by a lot of people too.
Yes, and then I think that's an important part to note. Because my first thought immediately went to Robert Hunt.
Okay.
Left guard, big dude, right guard, big dude. I may have just given mine away. Right guard, big dude. But I almost thought Robert Hunt gets too much love. He's a character. People like hearing him in the locker room. He's making $20 million a year. He is an anchor to the offensive line. And for maybe because there's some lack of star power at other offensive positions, at least until Tedero McMillan showed up, like I feel like Robert Hunt actually is appreciated by the Panther fans.
Oh, yeah.
Damian Lewis, I don't think he is. Damian Lewis makes roughly half as much as Robert Hunt. He's on a $53 million contract, which only. But that interior of the offensive line is really 2 guards, and you can slot whoever you want in at center. They played very well with 3 or 4 different centers last year. Austin Corbett's coming back to take that role. But Damian Lewis is the one next to Ike Ekwonu. Damian Lewis is the one who has to deal with the less experienced guy on his side of the line. And they've done a pretty darn good job over there. So when I always think of Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Yeah.
Back in the day where bands like had the, what was it, Ray Charles and the Raylettes?
Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Exactly. When you're talking about the offensive line for the Panthers, it does seem like it's Robert Hunt and the offensive line. Damian Lewis should not be just relegated to singing backup. He is a good enough person to take a solo every now and then. So that's where I'm going with it, because the offensive line, run blocking especially, is kind of the Slavin of, hey, that game was pretty rough. But before we got behind 2 touchdowns and it made sense to run the ball, they did have a pretty good day, right? It's just, once we get behind 2 touchdowns, we kind of have to throw, and that's not their specialty. So, at least the oasis was, we run block pretty well. I think Damian Lewis doesn't get enough love for that.
Okay, I see where you're going with on that. I agree with you on that. That he doesn't get enough love and enough appreciation, because when we say, oh, they signed 2 guards this past off season. Yeah, Robert Hunt, awesome, because Robert Hunt also did make a Pro Bowl, or was a Pro Bowl alternate this year, and he had a really good career first 4 years in the with the Miami Dolphins, and obviously earned his contract. But yeah, when you make the bigger money, you're going to get more attention.
And I should have clarified. I'll say both of them are Slavin, kind of.
Yeah.
Damian Lewis is Slavin pre-Four Nations Cup. Robert Hunt is Slavin post-Four Nations Cup, because it does seem like Slavin's getting more love nationally now after the Four Nations Cup, when everybody was rooting for, or not everybody, but obviously by country, a lot of people were rooting for Team USA, and he was playing huge minutes and playing fantastic. So Lewis is almost like old school Slavin before the national media caught up to how good he is.
I was actually surprised you didn't go this. I was actually thinking you might go Derrick Brown, because Derrick Brown is highly productive as a player.
Best defensive player, makes sense.
Best run, but best
JC Horn.
But best. Well, I'm talking like in terms of production and consistency. I know barring the injury this past season, but the production and the consistency has been there. But when you compare him to other defensive tackles across the NFL, in terms of the top tier guys, his name doesn't get mentioned. Is because, kind of like Jaccob Slavin, best lockdown defender in the entire NHL, doesn't put up the offensive points. Derrick Brown, best run defender in the NFL in terms of the interior, but he doesn't put up the sack number, doesn't have that interior pass rush that a lot of other top guys do. So he kind of gets overlooked in that regard when you talk about top-tier guys. But you're like, oh, well, man, there's Derrick Brown with another tackle. Oh, look, there's Jaccob Slavin with another pass breakup. Like, that's where I was going to go.
I actually thought Derrick Brown and JC Horn for the same reason, in that they are very good at everything except for the one stat that makes you an all-pro.
Yeah.
Where Derrick Brown is good at everything you want an interior defensive lineman to do except getting the quarterback on the ground, which is the flashy stat that gets people to vote for you for all-pro. JC Horn, very good at everything you want from your lockdown corner, aside from getting a ton of interceptions, which is the thing you need. But the one part that I didn't have from either of them that Slavin has is the durability.
That's a good point.
But both of those guys missed, and Derrick Brown obviously most recently missed huge chunks of time. And part of the dependability of Slavin is he's usually out there.
He's there.
He's usually out there. So that was the one kind of disqualifying thing. And maybe that's unfair because Hunt and Lewis got here this year. So it's like, they haven't been durable for a season. And actually they both did have little bang-ups and owies. But it's just it seems like Brown and Horn more so than that. So those were the only reasons I didn't go with them. But you're right that they don't have the flashy stat. I also think it's absolutely ridiculous that you can't be the best defenseman in the NHL without scoring goals.
Yeah.
I don't. That's like saying, Patrick Mahomes can't be the best quarterback because he doesn't run for enough explosive plays. It's like, well, it's nice if you do, but you can be an effective quarterback doing the thing that quarterbacks are asked to do more often.
It's funny because we have an award, the Selke, which Rob Brindamore has won, and Jordan Stahl finished second for last year for best defensive forward in the NHL. Why? In the NHL, because it's kind of default what the Norris has become.
And mixing the two, the NFL is getting better at it. Did you see the award that they're giving out this year?
I have not.
Protector of the Year. It's Offensive Lineman of the Year.
See, I like that.
It's the first time they're adding it to like Offensive Player of the Year and blah, 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 blah. Protector of the Year for Offensive Lineman of the Year.
I like that.
That just makes sense.
Yeah.
Because guess what? A guard is never going to win Offensive Player of the Year because they don't score enough touchdowns. So you make an award for that specific deal. And by the way, I don't want to have 75 awards. But yeah, like if you have defensive forward, you should have offensive defenseman. And then you can have a defenseman of the year award, which Slavin would be in the mix for, probably a multiple time winner by the time it's all said and done, but definitely a whole bunch of top 5 finishes.